people have said to me, you make fun of the left more than you used to. And guilty, I have, because the left has changed. Now, the right has changed also, and even worse. I mean, the right doesn't believe in democracy anymore.
We have been spending a lot of time talking about the journey that Bill Maher's been on. And yes, he's selling a book, so he's going to say what he needs to say in whatever venue to sell that book. That's fine. We're cynical. We recognize that. It is what it is. But he's definitely amped up his criticism of the left. And he's made some observations that his pals, either on the panel with him or interviewing him or in his audience, are uncomfortable with because he has a way of cutting through the crap and actually calling the left on their hypocrisy and bull. So when he sat with Fareed Zakaria at CNN, there were quite a few revelations. And I'm only going to pause it a couple of times here because ultimately, at the end of the day, I sniff out Bill Maher's absolute and complete total bullshit that he's about to lay out for you. So let's go on this journey together, watch what he has to say, and then I'll call him on it as soon as he exposes it.
In the middle of your book, you write, some people think I've changed. I assure you I have not. I'm still the same unmarried, childless, pot-smoking libertine I always was. I have many flaws, but you can't accuse me of maturing.
Now, that sounds like a really funny, good book.
So I want to put to you, because I know you like listening to disagreement, people who say to me, and there are many who say, I loved Bill Maher, but he has matured too much. He's become cranky. He's become crotchety. He's become one of those old guys who says,
really?
The kids are crazy. It was better in my day. What do you say to them?
They're wrong. I mean, they're wrong, and the kids are crazy. It's interesting. They have this idea, the younger generation, maybe every generation does, that just because something is new makes it better. And that's not true. New is not synonymous with better.
But you're sounding like an old-fashioned conservative.
Okay. I heard a couple of people say, or maybe they wrote it online, that, well, I'm a hypocrite because you were for the demonstrators in 1968 or whatever it was when they were demonstrating against the Vietnam War. Yeah, that was very different. First of all, the students weren't against their own. These students were threatening other students. That didn't happen in the Vietnam War. And being against the Vietnam War made sense. It was a war that we probably should not have been in.
But let me ask you,
this is demonstrating and protesting for a terrorist group. I mean, Hamas is...
Well, to be fair, a lot of students aren't doing that. There are a lot of outside, people have mixed together what students are doing, what outside protesters are doing. But let me ask you a broader question, which is, a lot of people will say, look, this is how you get change. It's noisy. Some people say the wrong thing. Some people go too far. But the whole tradition of this kind of expansion of rights, it's messy, it's chaotic. There's probably a bunch of excess, as there probably was in the 60s. There was the Black Panthers and the Weathermen and things like that. But they think of you as somebody who was, you were okay with all that, but you've turned.
I haven't turned. Yes, people have said to me, you make fun of the left more than you used to. And guilty, I have, because the left has changed. Now, the right has changed also, and even worse. I mean, the right doesn't believe in democracy anymore. I mean, they've thrown their lot in with this sociopath named Donald Trump, who only thinks elections count when we win. Okay, well, that's worse. But it's not like the left hasn't changed also. So I'm going to call it out wherever I see it. I mean, there are things that have to do with, gender and race and free speech and just ideas about, you can be healthy at any weight, and gender is always a social construct, and maybe we should give communism another try, and maybe we should get rid of capitalism and the border patrol, and let's tear down statues of Lincoln and get rid of the police. Just, no. It's not that I've gotten old. It's that your ideas are stupid.
So this is a good place to pause. There's a little bit more to this, but this equivocation, the right is worse. They're a lot worse because, as he puts it, they don't believe in democracy anymore. They've thrown down with Trump and their election deniers. So I'm so sick of this talking point. this whole idea of not believing in democracy, first of all, again, it has to be said, we are not a democracy. We're a constitutional republic, although we do use the democratic process to choose our representatives in this constitutional republic. And we do believe in the democratic process. In fact, we believe so much in democracy and using democracy to select our representatives that we want to make sure that that democratic process is free of corruption. See, we're the ones who do believe in democracy. That means one man, one vote. That means that only eligible people should be able to vote. It means that ballots should be examined to ensure that they are legal before they get counted. It means that ballots should be kept in a secure place and only authorized personnel should be able to utilize them. In fact, we believe in democracy so much, Bill, that we think we should adopt the kind of systems that foreign countries, even third world countries that we have had to impose democratic processes on, employ. Like voter ID in every single modern country that utilizes democracy. You've got to prove you're an eligible voter and you are who you say you are before you get a ballot. When we impose democracy on places like Iraq and Afghanistan, did we just say, now anyone can vote, it doesn't matter, and ballots can come in even after election day and they don't have to be signed and they don't have to be dated, and we'll go ahead and count them anyway? No, we didn't do that. What did we do in Afghanistan when we imposed democracy on them? We made them dip their fingers in purple ink when they voted to make sure that it was secure and valid. So don't freaking stand up there and tell me we don't believe in democracy. It's the people who are corrupting our voting process that don't believe in democracy, who are complicit and look the other way with all of the shenanigans that go on. We believe in democracy. We just believe that the democratic process should be done in such a way where at the end of the day, on election night, when all the ballots are counted on one day, on election day, not for 3 weeks afterwards, that on election day, everyone, win or lose, can walk away saying, well, we didn't win, but at least it was a fair election. And frankly, in this country, we haven't had that for over 20 years. It's only this last time that it was Republicans who questioned the validity of the election. So I hate that talking point, and I'm sick of it, and I'm tired of it. And of course, Fareed Zakaria was not equipped to push back on it. That said, even if you stipulate that this thing that he thinks is really worse, the conservatives and the right in this country don't believe in democracy anymore because they've thrown down with Trump, look at the laundry list of things that he just said that he disagrees with the left on. From radical gender ideology to eliminating police officers, to throwing down with terrorists in Israel, to God, what was that? Oh, and bringing back communism and Marxism to our society, because that's a good. I mean, I'm sorry, if you're really weighing the two, one of them is specific to the last election that rewrote the rule book with regard to mail-in ballots and drop boxes, all under the fake premise of the pandemic. The other one fundamentally upends not just what this country stands for, but what basic biology means. I know which one I think is worse, Bill. But then he goes on to wax poetic about the good old days when people in America could disagree without hating each other. And I know we all want to believe this. We all want to love this idea that we can fight tooth and nail. And like Ronald Reagan and Tip O'Neill, he's going to reference this. They just had a cocktail together. By the way, I think that only happened once during the entire 8 years that Reagan was president. But give it to them for a minute. Let's say things were more civilized back then. I want you to listen. Take what he just said about conservatives, that we don't believe in democracy and we've thrown down with an authoritarian dictator who wants to never leave office if he gets in. That's who he thinks you are. And he'll go on further. And then ask yourself as you hear this, whether you really think Bill Maher doesn't hate conservatives. He claims he doesn't want us all to hate each other. and then listen to the hate.
Okay,
Common sense is still common sense.
Yes, common sense is common sense, and I'm going to call it out wherever it is on the spectrum.
So, Bill, you've talked a lot about how the left has gone crazy, but to be fair to you, you've always also pointed out the right has gone even crazier, embracing Trump. I want to ask you why you think it happened. Because, this was the party of Ronald Reagan. Free markets, free trade, loved immigration, very optimistic. What do you think made it, it's now dour, pessimistic. America is it's American carnage.
Well, I think the basis of it is we started to hate each other. I mean, you mentioned Ronald Reagan. Famously, he used to have a drink at the end of the day, often with Tip O'Neill, who was the leader in the House and the Democrat. But they were just two Irish Pauls who could get together and have a scotch at the end of the day. And they knew they weren't going to get along on many issues, but they didn't hate each other. They could drink together. That is inconceivable today. Can you imagine Joe Biden having a drink with Mike Johnson? It just would never happen. When you hate people, you don't listen to them. So it doesn't matter how reasonable they might be. We have reached this place where each side thinks the other side is an existential threat. You hear that term from both sides all the time. That is just a terrible place to be, because we find ourselves in this situation where both sides are literally siding with enemies of America rather than the opposition party within the country. I mean, you see Republican MAGA people with T-shirts that say, "I'd rather be with Russia than Democrats." I mean, Trump stood with Putin against our intelligence agencies. Fox News literally uses Russian talking points. I mean, Tucker Carlson went over there and did the whole dog and pony show, backing up Putin, basically. And on the left, you see them marching for Hamas, a terrorist organization. This is a terrible place to be, and it can happen here. The last chapter in the book is called Civil War, and you hear more about it all the time. People who are actually pining for it. Civil War, come on, let's do this thing. Let's get this going. Let's have this national divorce. It can't work. It won't work. Half the country is not going to self-deport, even if you win every election. I don't know. Sometimes you have to hit bottom before you can go back to the top. I don't know what that means in this country. But I know one thing, Donald Trump is not going to concede the election. So what happens in January 2025 on the 20th when Inauguration Day rolls around and he didn't win the election? He's not just going to go away. And if he wins and he's the president in January 20th, 2025, he's never going to give that up. Because he doesn't understand the Constitution, he doesn't care about it. I don't think he's ever read it. He just knows power and winning, and our side is right.
Where do you get more hate mail from, the left or right?
I don't know, because I don't read it.
On that note,
I don't care.
Well, and because he doesn't care, I feel just fine saying what I'm going to say, because that was a complete, total pile of bullshit from Bill Maher. Think about what he just said. Think about how he just painted conservatives and Trump voters, Trump supporters, and Donald Trump himself. According to Bill Maher, we don't believe in democracy anymore. We've thrown down with a dictator. We support Vladimir Putin and Russia and would rather be Russian than American. We take talking points from Russian propagandists and push Russian disinformation. And Donald Trump, if he loses the election, he won't concede the defeat and will attempt to take over the White House and the presidency. And if he does win the election, he will never leave and become president for life and a dictator who will hang on to power because that's all he knows. And we all support him and will be fine with him staying in office and staying there as our dictator for life. And I got to ask Bill Maher, if that's what you really believe Trump supporters and conservatives are, why don't you hate them? I mean, I would hate them. If you really think Trump is a Hitler, then you really think the people who support Hitler are Nazis. And do you not hate Nazis, dude? Don't wax poetic here and sing Morning in America by pining for the good old days when Ronald Reagan and Tip O'Neill could have a scotch at the end of the day, and then paint Trump supporters the way you just painted them. Of course you hate us. It's obvious you hate us. But you're pretending you don't because you want to sell books and act like you're the grown-up in the room. Dude, you're full of shit. Thankfully, though, you don't listen to the critics, so you'll never see this, and it's all good.